The obsidian black walls of High Forum Station absorbed all sound, creating an unnatural stillness that seemed to swallow Captain Samuel Elias's heartbeat. He stood at the center of the vast chamber, surrounded by 17 alien representatives, seated in a perfect semicircle above him. The binary stars visible through the transparent ceiling cast dual shadows across the polished floor, one deep red, one electric blue, symbolic of the crossroads humanity now faced. Elias smoothed down the front of his dress uniform, feeling the weight of Earth's future on his shoulders. For 15 years since achieving faster-than-light travel, humanity had expanded cautiously into nearby star systems, all while being observed by the ancient Galactic Council. Today marked their first formal audience, their chance to petition for recognition and protection within the interstellar community. Shall. Honorable delegates. Elias began, his voice steady, despite the flutter of anxiety in his chest. On behalf of the United Earth Government and our colonies, I thank you for this opportunity to present our case for council membership. He activated the holographic projector embedded in his palm. The chamber filled with shimmering blue light as a perfect miniature Earth materialized, spinning slowly above his outstretched hand. The hologram expanded, showing humanity's modest colonial outposts around Proxima Centauri and Alpha Centauri. We come with open hands and eager minds. He continued, cycling through carefully prepared visuals of Earth's diverse ecosystems, cultural achievements, and scientific advancements. In the brief span since achieving interstellar flight, we have established peaceful settlements on 17 worlds. Our scientists have developed sustainable terraforming techniques. Our artists have created works celebrating the cosmic diversity we have only begun to comprehend. The aliens remained motionless. Some were vaguely humanoid with subtle differences in proportion. Others were utterly alien crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light, gaseous forms contained in ornate vessels, multi-limbed entities with exoskeletons that clicked softly as they shifted. Elias had been briefed extensively on council protocol. He knew that questions would follow his presentation, then deliberation, and finally a decision on Earth's petition. He concluded with a final holographic display, an interactive visualization of proposed trade routes and cultural exchange programs. We recognize our youth among the stars, he said, meeting the gaze of each delegate in turn. Earth seeks not to disrupt, but to learn to contribute and to grow within the established order you have maintained for 50 millennia. We respectfully request provisional membership status and the guidance of your collective wisdom. The hologram faded. Elias stood tall, hands clasped behind his back, awaiting the first question. But no question came. The chamber remained silent as the seconds stretched into minutes. 5 full minutes passed, as Elias stood increasingly uncomfortable, yet determined to maintain his composure. Their silence was not preparation for speech. It was itself the response. Finally, a slender, robed figure with iridescent skin approached from a side chamber. The being gestured toward the exit without a word. Elias was being dismissed. Distinguished council members, he attempted, if I might address any concerns. The escort touched his arm gently, but firmly. The message was unmistakable. The audience was over. Earth's petition had been answered with absolute silence. As he was led back to his ship, Elias's mind raced. He had been prepared for skepticism, for difficult questions, even for outright rejection, but not for this complete absence of engagement. In diplomatic terms, this was unprecedented. Silence was not abstention or postponement. Silence from the council was a verdict. And Elias knew with a cold certainty that settled in his stomach like lead that it was not a favorable one. The journey back to Earth took 8 days at maximum FTL capacity. 8 days of replaying those 5 minutes of silence in his mind. 8 days of drafting and redrafting his report to the United Earth Government. 8 days of wondering what humanity had done to earn such dismissal. He was met at the orbital dock by Admiral Diane Russell, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun that matched the gravity of her expression. she dispensed with pleasantries. "Walk with me, Captain," she said, leading him toward a secure briefing room. As they walked, Elias noted the increased security presence throughout the station. Armed personnel at every junction, ships being loaded with supplies at an accelerated pace. "Something's happened," he said. It wasn't a question. Admiral Russell sealed the briefing room door behind them before responding. 12 hours after your audience, our deep space sensor arrays detected massive energy signatures throughout Council space. They're mobilizing their fleets, Captain. All of them." She activated the room's display, showing real-time tracking of hundreds of vessels breaking orbit from various Council worlds. "This is a full-scale deployment," Elias asked, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. "The largest we've ever observed, and they're moving toward the buffer zone between our territories." Elias sank into a chair, the implications crashing down on him. They never wanted a dialogue. The audience was a formality. "We need to know exactly what happened in that chamber," Russell pressed. "Every detail, every nuance." "There were no nuances, Admiral. I delivered our petition as planned." They sat in silence for 5 minutes. Then I was escorted out. Not a single word was spoken in response. Russell's expression darkened. "The linguistics team warned this might happen. Silence has profound significance in several Council species communication protocols. For the Zathk, it indicates irredeemable threat. For the Meridians, it's a death sentence. They've judged us unworthy of even basic diplomatic exchange." Elias said, the realization settling like ice in his veins. "And now they're mobilizing for war." Within hours, Earth's government had convened an emergency session. The chamber was divided physically and ideologically between 3 distinct factions. The diplomatic corps, led by Foreign Secretary Helena Chen, advocated for immediate dispatch of a second delegation. Captain Elias's reception may have been cultural miscommunication, she argued. "We must attempt clarification before assuming hostile intent." The defensive faction, represented by Admiral Russell, pushed for rapid fortification of colonial outposts and orbital platforms. "We prepare for the worst while hoping for peace," she countered. "Every hour we debate is an hour lost in securing our people." The third group, a vocal minority led by General Marcus Vega, demanded immediate military readiness. "The Council has shown its hand," he thundered, fist slamming against the polished table. 17 species with millennia of technological advancement have decided humanity is a threat to be eliminated. We must strike first while we still can." President Amara Singh listened to all sides before speaking. When she did, her voice was measured but resolute. "We will pursue all paths simultaneously," she declared. "A second diplomatic mission will depart within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Admiral Russell will coordinate defensive preparations across all colonies. And yes, General Vega, we will ready our fleet, but for defense only. Humanity will not fire the first shot of an interstellar war." She turned to Elias, who had been silent throughout the debate. "Captain, your experience with the Council is now our most valuable asset. I'm assigning you to special projects under Admiral Russell's command. Develop countermeasures. Find weaknesses. Create contingencies. If diplomacy fails, we'll need every advantage you can give us." Elias nodded grimly. "Yes, Madam President." In the months that followed, humanity prepared on multiple fronts. The second diplomatic mission returned, just as the first had escorted out in silence. The third never made it to High Forum at all, their ship intercepted at the edge of Council space and forced to retreat. Meanwhile, Elias threw himself into his new role with grim determination. Working alongside the brightest minds from Earth's defense sector, he helped develop adaptive shield technology that could reconfigure in real time to counter different weapons frequencies. His experience as an explorer and his intuitive understanding of space combat proved invaluable. Dr. Carol Wright, a weapons researcher with intense dark eyes and a perpetual furrow between her brows, led the team developing what would become known as the Echo Protocol. The Council species have been communicating with each other for thousands of years. she explained to Elias during a late-night strategy session. Their translation matrices are so sophisticated that linguistic deception is nearly impossible. They expect the same transparency from us. Which means they'll take our communications at face value, Elias said, seeing where she was going. Right, nodded, a rare smile crossing her features. Exactly. We can hide our true intentions within standardized communication protocols, embedding secondary commands and coordinates that their systems will filter out as routine data. A modern Trojan horse, Elias mused. But will it work against species that have evolved completely different forms of language? That's the beauty of it, Wright replied, projecting a complex algorithmic pattern onto the display. We're not trying to fool them with words. We're exploiting the architecture of their universal translation systems they've optimized for efficiency rather than security. The first test of humanity's preparations came sooner than expected. A council task force of 5 mid-sized vessels emerged from FTL near Europa, one of Jupiter's moons that housed a research station studying extremophile organisms in the subsurface ocean. Elias was aboard the UES Defiance, a newly commissioned destroyer, equipped with the latest adaptive shields and enhanced propulsion systems. As the ranking officer with council experience, he was granted tactical command of the defense squadron, 3 smaller, faster vessels designed for hit-and-run encounters. Council vessels approaching at sublight speed, reported First Officer Linda Morgan, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. No communication attempts. Weapon systems active. Elias studied the formation. The Council ships moved in perfect synchronization, a testament to their millennia of coordinated warfare. They're expecting us to either flee or form a conventional defense perimeter, he said. We'll do neither. Break formation on my mark, theta pattern, maximum dispersion. The human vessels scattered in seemingly random vectors, confusing the Council targeting systems. While the aliens adjusted their approach, Elias ordered a series of micro-jumps, short-range FTL bursts, that positioned his ships at unexpected angles relative to the attackers. Fire precision strikes on their sensor arrays only, he commanded. We want to blind, not destroy. The engagement lasted less than 15 minutes. 2 Council vessels retreated with significant damage to their external sensor systems. One was completely disabled, tumbling silently through space. The remaining 2 maintained position, but ceased aggressive maneuvering. Europa Station and its personnel remained unharmed. They're sending encrypted transmissions, Morgan reported. Massive data bursts. They're reporting on our tactics, Elias said. The Council expected us to behave according to predictable patterns, either standard military doctrine or civilian panic. We just proved we're capable of adaptation and restraint. That's valuable intelligence for them to process. And process they did. For nearly 3 weeks, Council forces remained outside human-controlled space, their ships repositioning in formations that human analysts struggled to interpret. The reprieve gave Earth precious time to accelerate its preparations, evacuating civilian populations from the most exposed colonies, retrofitting commercial vessels with military-grade shields, and distributing the latest versions of Dr. Wright's Echo protocol throughout the fleet. Elias used the time to train squadron leaders in asymmetric tactics, drawing on Earth's long history of guerrilla warfare, and adapting those principles to 3-dimensional space combat. We can't match their firepower or numbers, he told his officers. But we can be unpredictable, innovative, and absolutely committed to protecting our people. The waiting game ended with horrifying abruptness. Without warning or declaration, a Council battle group jumped into the Proxima Centauri system and opened fire on the civilian settlements. No attempts at communication, no demands for surrender, just silent, methodical annihilation. By the time Elias and the Defiance arrived, responding to the colony's automated distress beacon, 3 settlement domes had been reduced to smoking craters. Thousands of civilians, men, women, children who had been building new lives among the stars, were gone in an instant. Elias stood on the bridge, staring at the tactical display, as damage reports scrolled past. His hands gripped the command rail until his knuckles turned white. "They're treating us like an infection," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Something to be contained and eliminated before it can spread." Officer Morgan approached, her face ashen. "Captain, survivors from Dome 4 report Council forces are landing ground troops. They're collecting samples." "Biological specimens," Elias realized. "They're studying us even as they exterminate us." He took a deep breath, feeling a shift within himself. The explorer who had hoped for peaceful exchange was receding. The commander, who would protect his people at all costs, was taking control. "Alert all vessels in the sector," he ordered. "Form up on the Defiance. We're going to show the Council exactly what they've awakened." Elias assembled a strike force of 7 ships, the Defiance plus 6 smaller, faster cruisers, recently equipped with the adaptive shield technology he had helped develop. Rather than meeting the Council battle group head-on, he divided his force into 3 elements and approached from multiple vectors, using Proxima's intense solar radiation to mask their signatures. "Target their destroyers," he instructed, as the human ships closed in. "Concentrate on sensor arrays and propulsion nodes. Use Echo Protocol Delta to coordinate targeting through encrypted channels." The Council vessels, arranged in their traditional crescent formation, were slow to respond to the multi-vector assault. For all their technological advancement, their tactics had grown rigid through millennia of unchallenged dominance. They expected frontal engagement, not the swarm attacks Elias had designed. The battle was brief, but decisive. 3 Council destroyers were left crippled, their crews intact, but their ability to fight effectively neutralized. The remaining Council vessels retreated to regroup, jumping to FTL without attempting to recover their stranded comrades. For the first time in what intelligence suggested was thousands of years, Council forces had been dealt a significant defeat. "Prepare boarding parties," Elias ordered. "I want those ships secured and their databases copied. And get me a direct line to Earth Command. They need to know the war has truly begun." The 3 years that followed were among the bloodiest in human history. While the initial victory at Proxima had been significant, the Council's response was overwhelming. They brought to bear weapons platforms and strategic capabilities that dwarfed humanity's greatest achievements. One by one, outer colonies fell under relentless assault. Earth itself remained secure, protected by the combined might of the home fleet, but the price was terrible. Arcturus Station, New Anchorage, the Tau Ceti settlements. All gone, their populations evacuated, if there was warning, obliterated, if there was not. The Council employed scorched earth tactics, making clear their intention was not conquest, but extinction. Yet humanity endured, adapting, as it always had. Dr. Wright's Echo Protocol evolved from a simple communication deception into a comprehensive electronic warfare suite, allowing human vessels to hijack Council targeting systems and create phantom signatures that drew fire away from actual ships. Elias, now Admiral Elias, following Russell's death in the Battle of Alpha Centauri, directed what remained of Earth's fleet from the UES Defiance. Once a pristine example of human engineering, the vessel now bore the scars of countless engagements, patched hull breaches, retrofitted weapon systems, and a crew that had been forged into something beyond soldiers through shared loss and grim determination. "We've intercepted Council transmissions from the Sirius sector," Morgan, now his XO, reported during one of their daily strategic sessions. "They're significantly different from previous patterns." "Define different," Elias said, looking up from tactical projections. "They're arguing, sir," Morgan replied, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from her voice. 3 member species have withdrawn their forces from the main assault groups. There appears to be significant disagreement about how to proceed. Dr. Wright, who had transferred to the Defiance to personally oversee implementation of the latest Echo Protocol variants, leaned forward. "We've been analyzing communication patterns across all Council frequencies. The unified front they presented at the start of this conflict is fracturing. Some factions are questioning the cost of this war." 3 years of bleeding them for every inch of space, Elias mused. Even with their technological advantage, they've lost ships they can't easily replace and expended resources they didn't anticipate spending. There's more, Wright continued. I believe the latest version of Echo Protocol is ready for full deployment. We can now embed false data directly into their distributed command networks, not just confusing their targeting systems, but feeding misinformation to their strategic planning cores. Elias studied the schematics she presented. You're proposing we make them think we're concentrated in one sector, while we strike another. Exactly. Operation Whisper. A coordinated strike against their supply depots in 7 systems simultaneously. Their defense grid will be looking in the wrong direction. For the first time in months, Elias felt something like hope stir within him. Make it happen, Doctor. It's time we took back the initiative. Operation Whisper exceeded even the most optimistic projections. Human strike teams using Wright's advanced Echo protocol to mask their approach disabled or destroyed Council supply depots across 7 star systems within a 12-hour window. The Council's carefully orchestrated war machine suddenly found itself without the fuel munitions and provisions needed to maintain its forward positions. The strategic impact was immediate. Council forces began withdrawing from contested systems, consolidating around their core territories. The unified front that had seemed so impenetrable at the start of the conflict was now visibly cracking. We're receiving an unusual transmission, Morgan reported 3 days after Operation Whisper concluded. It's on a frequency we haven't encountered before, but it's definitely Council in origin. Another attempt to probe our defenses, Elias asked. I don't think so, sir. It's a request for parley. The message had originated from a previously unknown entity, identifying itself as Zarvek's grand strategist of the Council's combined forces. It proposed a meeting on a barren moon, in a neutral system, no weapons, minimal escort, and an opportunity to discuss terms. President Singh, addressing Elias via secure quantum link from Earth, was cautiously optimistic. This is the first olive branch they've extended in 3 years of bloodshed. We can't ignore it. It could also be a trap, Elias pointed out. A way to eliminate Earth's military leadership in one stroke. Which is why I'm not sending a political delegation, Singh replied. I'm sending you, Admiral. You started this journey at High Forum. It's fitting you represent us now. The meeting site was a decommissioned research dome on a tidally locked moon, orbiting a gas giant. Dust covered every surface evidence that it had been abandoned long before the current conflict. Elias arrived with a small security team, and Dr. Wright, whose expertise in Council communication protocols might prove invaluable. Zarvex was already waiting inside the dome when they entered an insectoid, being standing nearly 7 feet tall, with an iridescent exoskeleton and compound eyes that reflected the dim light in faceted patterns. 4 upper limbs were folded in what Elias recognized as a ceremonial pose of non-aggression. Admiral Elias, the being said, its voice produced by a translation device at its thorax. We meet at the culmination of events set in motion by silence. A silence your council chose, Elias replied, maintaining formal distance. Zarvex's antennae quivered slightly. A silence born of fear, not malice. Fear. Wright interjected, unable to contain her surprise. Your civilization spans thousands of systems. Your technology is millennia beyond ours. What could you possibly fear from humanity? Your trajectory, Zarvex replied simply. In the span of 15 years, your species achieved what took others centuries. Your adaptive capacity, your innovative drive. These traits mirror too closely the patterns we observed in the precursors. The extinct civilization mentioned in some of the Council databases we captured, Elias said, making the connection. Not extinct, Zarvex corrected. Vanished. The precursors arose quickly, expanded rapidly, and then transcended. Left this plane of existence entirely, but not before their technological acceleration destabilized dozens of nascent civilizations. The Council was formed in the aftermath, dedicated to maintaining balance and preventing such disruption from occurring again. So you witnessed our development and decided preemptive extinction was the answer, Elias said, anger edging his voice. The Council is not monolithic, Admiral, Zarvex replied. Some advocated for guidance and integration, others for quarantine and observation. Those who recalled the precursor crisis most vividly pushed for elimination. In the absence of consensus, silence became our response, a traditional signal that deliberation would continue while containment was implemented. Your containment cost millions of human lives, Wright said bitterly. As your resistance has cost millions of Council lives, Zarvex countered. A price that has forced reassessment. 3 member species have withdrawn from the conflict entirely. Others question whether the cure has become worse than the disease. And you, Elias asked, what does the Grand Strategist believe? Zarvex's compound eyes shifted, focusing on Elias with unnerving intensity. I believe we erred, not in fearing your potential but in our response to that fear. Humanity has proven both more adaptable and more resilient than our models predicted. You have also demonstrated restraint targeting military assets while avoiding civilian populations when possible, even at tactical disadvantage. We're not the monsters you assumed us to be, Elias said simply. No, Zarvex agreed. You are something far more interesting, and potentially far more valuable as allies than as enemies. Over the next 72 hours, Elias and Zarvex negotiated the framework for what would become the Earth Council Accord. Humanity would accept constraints on its rate of expansion, no more than 5 new systems per decade, and limitations on certain technologies deemed particularly destabilizing. In exchange, Earth would receive full Council membership access to the accumulated knowledge of 17 spacefaring civilizations and guarantees of territorial integrity for all existing colonies. Most importantly, the war would end immediately. All Council forces would withdraw to their pre-conflict boundaries. Humanitarian aid would flow both ways. Human medical expertise, which had proven surprisingly advanced in certain areas, to Council worlds affected by the fighting, and Council terraforming technology to help rebuild shattered human settlements. When Elias returned to Earth, with the terms the government deliberated for less than a day before accepting. After 3 years of devastating losses, peace, even peace with limitations, was embraced with overwhelming relief. The formal signing ceremony took place where it all began, in the vast obsidian chamber of High Forum Station. This time, Elias was not alone. He stood with 3 additional human delegates, President Singh, Dr. Wright, and Admiral Morgan, who had succeeded him as fleet commander when he accepted the role of Earth's first permanent representative to the Council. As they entered the chamber, Elias braced himself for the silence that had haunted him for years. Instead, a ripple of sound moved through the assembled delegates' cliques, whistles, harmonic tones, and other vocalizations that the translation matrix rendered as applause. Zarvex, now serving as liaison between humanity and the Council, stepped forward to make the formal introduction. The Council recognizes Earth and its colonies as equal members of our interstellar community, the Grand Strategist announced. We acknowledge the wisdom you have demonstrated in war and the grace you have shown in peace. Where once there was silence, let there now be dialogue that spans the stars. Elias moved to the center of the chamber, standing where he had stood 4 years earlier. The weight of all that had happened, the lives lost, the world scarred, the hard lessons learned on both sides, settled on his shoulders. But alongside it was something new, the lightness of possibility. On behalf of humanity, he began, his voice clear and steady. I accept this recognition not as vindication of our struggle, but as the beginning of mutual understanding. We have all paid dearly for the silence that divided us. Let us ensure that our children inherit a galaxy where every voice, however different, finds the courage to speak and the wisdom to listen. As the chamber filled with sounds of agreement from 17 different species, Elias allowed himself a moment of reflection. The path that had brought him here was marked by tragedy and triumph in equal measure. The scars of war would remain for generations, But as he looked at the faces of his fellow humans, Singh's quiet dignity, Wright's fierce intelligence, Morgan's steadfast loyalty, he saw in them the qualities that had carried humanity through its darkest hour: adaptability, resilience, and an unwavering belief that understanding was possible even across the vast gulfs that separated the stars. The binary stars visible through the transparent ceiling cast their dual light across the chamber, one deep red, one electric blue. But now, where they overlapped, Elias saw not division, but synthesis. Not conflict, but harmony. Not an ending, but a beginning. And this time when he spoke, the council answered.